Okay, so welcome back. Hopefully you have already done the statistics for the other course, the grade 9 academic course. Next thing we're going to look at is how to actually graph this raw data. So this is continuous data. And what I mean by that is these course marks can exist to any decimal place. Okay, they're shown here by whole numbers, but that can be 88.25, whatever. Sometimes even if it is discrete data, so even if these were just whole numbers, we treat them as continuous because there is a large range. We don't want to have one individual bar for every single percentage. So no matter what, we're treating this as continuous. So if something is continuous, we're going to create a histogram. Whereas if something is discrete, we're going to create a bar graph. The difference being whether or not the bars are touching. In a histogram, the bars are touching. In a bar graph, the bars are separated to kind of show that there is space in between those values. Alrighty, so what I want to do here is I want to calculate a histogram of the grade 9 gifted class. So I'm going to select all of that information, and then I'm going to insert this graph. Oops, sorry, double clicked there. I'm going to insert, it doesn't say graph, but it says chart, and there's a picture of a graph, same thing. Google Sheets is going to take a guess at what type of graph I want. It's going to guess very poorly. It just guessed scatterplot. We want to do a histogram. So it suggests which ones you could possibly want, or you can scroll down and pick. There's lots of different kinds that Sheets can do. We want to do a histogram. Okay, so I'm just going to move it up so it's closer to my actual summary. So this is a statistical summary that we did earlier. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to format this a little bit, because right off the bat I noticed the title is histogram of. You don't want to title your graphs with the type of graph it is. You don't title a pie chart. Instead, this is a distribution of grade 9 gifted course marks. Okay, on the bottom, these marks here, those aren't grade 9 gifted, those are the course marks. And it doesn't say it's in percents, but I'm going to assume it's in percents. Alright, now if we take a look at our scale, it starts at 60, goes to 100. Marks can possibly go down as low as 0. Now, some people might argue whether or not to put a 0 on there and show it because there are no marks less than 60. For this particular case, I am going to go down to 0 because I'm going to want to compare it to the other course, and I don't know how low those other course marks go right now. I haven't done that information yet. So, I want to change this scale. So over here we have Chart Editor, and if you lose Chart Editor, like I just did by accident, just double click kind of somewhere in the white space on your graph, and it pops up. In order to edit my axes, I'm going to go to Customize, and I want to edit my horizontal axis, and I want to make the minimum value 0 and the maximum value 100. Alright, now we can see that the scales are going from 0 to 14.29. That's a really ugly scale to go by, right? We want to go by nice counting numbers. Something that money comes in is what I always say. So you want kind of between 5 and 20 bars. That's kind of a good rule so that you can actually see the distribution. 5's a little bit low. Anywhere over 20, you're getting too many bars. So either way, you can't really see much. Here we only have 3 bars, so not enough. So I want to actually change what the scale's going up by to be a nice counting number so that I have a good amount of bars that I can see kind of the overall shape. And you would think that would be located in this same section, but it is not. In Google Sheets, it's actually a little bit hidden. I find this one hard to find always. It's actually right under the histogram. And that's because it is a histogram, not a bar graph or a line graph or anything like that. Those are located still in the axis section. But for histograms, they put them in here. And it's called bucket size. So I want my bucket size to go by, well, let's take a look at them. So I could go by 10s, and it would look like that. Oh, only 4 bars, so not quite enough bars. So I go by like 5s. Let's try 5s. There we go. So now we have several bars. We can kind of see an overall shape. Alright, the last thing I need to do to format this is I currently don't have an axis or an axis label for my y-axis. I can't just click on it and type it because it's not even there. So in order to do that, I'm going to go over to Chart and Axis Titles. And right now I'm in horizontal axis. I've already fixed that one. So I'm going to go to vertical axis. I'm going to change that to frequency because that is the number of students that have that particular grade. You could also say number of students, but frequency is good. So it's basically saying that 3 students have a mark between 60 and 65. So you'll also notice what's unique on a histogram is the labels are actually labeling the start and the end of the bar. They're not labeling in the middle like a bar graph often is, or like a scatter plot. Typically, it's lined up exactly with your kind of dot. All right, so that's my distribution of that. So your next task is to make a distribution of the grade 9 academic. And then what I want you to do is I want you to write a paragraph, maybe a couple paragraphs, describing the differences between the grade 9 gifted class and the grade 9 academic class. In order to write a paragraph in a Sheets software, you're going to want to maybe just merge a whole bunch of cells together. So if I just select a whole bunch, this gives me lots of writing space. I'm going to go merge. I also want to make sure that my text is wrapped, because if it is not, and I go to write a big long sentence about a dog jumping a fence and he runs away and this needs to be longer. If I do that, as I was typing it, I could read it all. But as soon as I entered, it goes here and then I can't see it anymore. I'm in the software so I can see it up here, but if I were looking at this as a PDF, I wouldn't be able to read the rest of my paragraph. So I need to wrap again. So I'm going to go text wrapping, wrap. And now I can read everything, which is awesome. You may not want your paragraph to be centered, so you might want to do that to that. But what I want you to put inside this big box is I want you to compare the 2 classes. I want you to make sure that you are discussing key statistical values. So I want you to actually reference the measures of tendency, measures of spread. I want you to reference the graph. So I want you to talk about the shape of the graph. Talk about if you think it's symmetric or asymmetric, which basically means it's not symmetric. And then I also want you to try and provide some reasoning. Discuss the different students that might enroll in a gifted class and why that might result in that mean or those central tendencies, that spread, that particular shape of a distribution in comparison to academic class. Why do you think they might be different? What do you think arose, or what do you think created those differences or those similarities? Okay, so whenever you're providing an answer and a discussion in this class, I want you to be always underlyingly thinking about why. Why does that make sense? Trying to come up with some hypothesis, some justification for those things. I don't want you just talking about the numbers or the shape. I don't want you just raw answering the question. Always take it to the next level. Try and provide some detail, some reasoning, some justification for why. Okay, so that's going to finish off that tab. So that's going to end up this part. When you come back, we're going to go on to the next tab, and we're going to go to part 3.